Hello, and welcome to No BS with Dr. Wood, and I'm Dr. Norman Wood. This episode will be our first in a series of discussions about the 1983 cold case of Wetzel County Jane Doe. This unidentified lady was named Judy by the gracious couple who took custody of her remains in 1994 and had her buried in a family plot at the Paden City Memorial Garden Cemetery. I have been in contact with the family, and I have been given permission to exhume the body if necessary. So let's jump into this case as soon as we get back and cue the music. Okay, I need to give a little history about myself for those of you who do not know me. I joined the West Virginia State Police in 1977, and I loved my time as a trooper. I left the State Police in 1985, and I was recruited out of Fairmont State College when I finished my criminal justice and psychology degree. I was taken to the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center in Georgia as an instructor. I taught the Secret Service and other agencies, high-speed pursuit, felony car stops, counter-terrorist, and counter-ambush driving. And that was a lot of fun. From there, I was asked to go to San Francisco, where I was a direct hire by Special Agent in Charge Roland Klink of the U.S. Customs Service. I was assigned to the Organized Crime Drug Enforcement Task Force. I was able to develop information that the Russian military and the Russian KGB were attempting to smuggle 100 tons of narcotics into San Francisco from Afghanistan. The Russians were using a former cellmate of convicted Russian spy Christopher Boyce, who they made the movie of called The Falcon and the Snowman. This former cellmate of Boyce was Calvin Robinson, and he was in charge of the American side of the smuggling operation. The proceeds of that smuggling operation were to be used to fund the planned coup of Russian General Secretary Mikhail Gorbachev. I was undercover for a few years, and I was able to stop that smuggling operation in 1988. The result was the largest drug seizure in United States history, 56 tons of narcotics. There is an old video of that time if you search Special Agent Norman Wood on youtube.com. They are currently putting together a TV series about my time as an undercover special agent. This series will follow my 4 novels that are on Amazon: Red Sword, Thorn, Checkmate, and The President Said Kill Him. My real undercover name was Tony Davis. My name in my novels is Nathan West, and the TV series will be called West. This gives you a better understanding of why I do what I do. And as a doctor for the past 30 years, you're still an investigator. It's just in the medical field. So I have a long history of investigations, and I don't quit. I want to start this podcast with this acknowledgement. I will not be able to tell you everything that I know about this case or any case that I work. Some of the information that I am now aware of or will be made aware of in the future must remain secret for investigative reasons. And I will always protect evidence that may be used in a court of law. However, I will be able to give you information that is public in nature, and most of this information may not be known by you. This is a fascinating case, and it is still unsolved. even after 43 years. So let's get started. The following video shows where this place is located and where I was on Sunday morning, February 13th, 1983. I'm driving south on US Route 250 in Marshall County, and right around this turn I enter Wetzel County. Wetzel County line. In just about another mile, I will come to the white spot where Judy's body was left. On February 13th, 1983, it was still snowing when I came through here. We had about 4 to 5 inches of snow and it was still lightly falling. And when you turn around this turn down here, we will come to the white spot where Judy's body was left. And then that vehicle came back up this hill when it left. And here's the white spot. And off to the right, over the bank, is where Judy's body was left. And I will park here where I parked my cruiser. I parked my cruiser, which was parked just about where the Hummer is. And then I walked up this way, up the side of the road. And I could see just about this area where one vehicle had parked and the driver had gotten out and he had walked over to the edge of the bank. Those big rocks were not here then, and you can see the big tree behind the rocks. The person, which I assume was the older gentleman, got out of his vehicle here and walked over there behind that tree. And there was another vehicle tracks where a vehicle had backed up and had parked in this area. And that driver had also gotten out and he had walked to the back of the vehicle, and then his tracks also went to the same place where the elderly man had walked to relieve himself. So I walked up the road to about this point, and I walked over here and back to the edge of the bank, and I avoided stepping on any of the other footprints. And at this location, over the bank right here to the right side of this big tree, is where Judy's body was lying. I walked over the hill, got down to her and made sure that she was deceased, and she was. And I came back up, walked back up to the road, again avoiding all of the footprints. Walked back to my cruiser, got my camera measuring tape, and came up here and started doing the crime scene investigation. But that vehicle that unloaded the body backed up right to this spot here. And only a driver got out, went to the back of the vehicle, walked over here. Again, these rocks were not in this location. Walked over and then slid Judy's body over the bank right back there. So shortly after daylight on that morning, I left my home on Fish Creek and drove my state police Ram Charger south on US Route 250 towards 100, West Virginia, where the state police office was. It was still snowing. The roads were covered and it was slick, and no one was out on the road at that time on a Sunday morning. I drove down the hill going into Littleton. I passed the wide spot in the road where Judy would be laid a few hours later. There were no tire tracks in that wide spot when I passed. I would have noticed. And it was still snowing. I got to the office, made myself a cup of coffee, and began doing paperwork. The snow finally stopped shortly after, and we had about 4 to 5 inches of new snow. A few hours later, I was sitting there at the front desk of the 100 office when an older gentleman walked in. He told me he and his wife had driven down from Wheeling to eat at Miss Blue's restaurant, which was next door. He said he stopped along the way to relieve himself in a wide parking area along U.S. Route 250 near Littleton, and he said he walked over to the edge of the bank and saw what he believed was a mannequin lying over the bank in the snow. But it looked real enough to him that it bothered him, and that's why he came to the office. I asked him the location, and he told me. Being very familiar with the area and had driven past that white spot earlier, I knew exactly where he was talking about. I took his personal information, thanked him, and then I drove to that location. I parked a state police vehicle on the south end of the white spot as shown in the video, so not to disturb any tracks that had already been made in the snow by the cars and people. I saw where the elderly man had parked and walked to the edge of the bank and then back to his car. I could also see another set of tire tracks and another set of footprints in the snow. Both sets of footprints went to the same place along the bank as I indicated in the video. I avoided stepping in any of the previously made footprints and made my way to the edge of the bank. I looked over the bank and I could see the naked body of a woman lying in the snow. I knew it was not a mannequin. I made my way down the bank to the body and checked her. She was already deceased. She had been placed there after the snow had stopped. There was no snow on top of the body. I returned to my car and got my camera and a measuring tape, and I didn't want anyone else there until I had thoroughly examined the scene. I took multiple pictures of the body, the 2 different sets of footprints, the tire tracks, and I took measurements. Later, I notified other troopers, and I had the body transported to the Assistant Chief Medical Examiner's office in Morgantown, and that was Dr. Frost. I went to Morgantown for the autopsy that Dr. Frost performed. This is an actual picture of Judy at the autopsy and an artist drawing of that picture. I assisted in taking samples for evidence and DNA analysis. DNA analysis was at its infancy in 1983. We couldn't tell much other than the blood type. Today, DNA analysis is amazing, and we can learn a great deal. We can not only identify family members from the databases, but we can also get a very good indication where a person lived and the year of their birth. During that autopsy on Judy, there were no signs of trauma to the body, and no medical findings that would indicate a natural cause of death. Dr. Frost concluded that she may have been suffocated, but he couldn't be sure. The estimated time of death was determined to be 2 to 3 days prior to us finding the body in the snow. Estimated age was 30 to 45 years of age. She was approximately 5 feet 5 inches in height, and she weighed 135 pounds. Had medium-length auburn hair with possible brown eyes. She had an upper denture. She had pierced ears, orange-painted toenails, and a cesarean section scar on her abdomen. And that is all we had to go by to identify this woman. No clothing, no fingerprints on file, no witnesses, no nothing, except for the denture. And for the next 2.5 years, that's just about all I did. I took her denture all over West Virginia and the eastern United States to see if I could identify the maker of the denture and her. I was as far north as New York State. But nothing ever panned out. Because of this case, West Virginia passed a new law requiring dentures to have manufacturers or patient information permanently affixed to them. That West Virginia law went into effect in 1985. Many other states followed. 4 years ago, in 2022, after I returned from Seattle, where I had helped run medical centers, I was asked to be the physician director of the West Virginia Division of Corrections and Rehabilitation. I took that position, and during that time, I contacted the state police to see if the tissue samples that I and Dr. Frost had collected 40 years prior had ever been submitted for testing and DNA analysis. I was informed by the state police that due to testing cost, those samples had not been submitted. I then urged the state police in the most strenuous of ways to do their job and to have those samples submitted for testing. I felt then, and I still feel, we owe Judy and her family at least that much effort. I even thought if they couldn't send the samples, I would pay for the testing myself if it ever came to that. Last year, the samples still had not been submitted, and I contacted the prosecuting attorney for Wetzel County, Timothy Hott. He agreed that we needed the state police to submit those samples for DNA testing so we could possibly identify this lady. Prosecutor Hott made inquiries to the status of those samples. Last week, Prosecuting Attorney Hott and I spoke before the Wetzel County Commission, and we explained what we were doing to further identify this lady. I informed the Commission that the state police samples had not been tested due to the cost, and additional samples from Judy may be necessary if the current samples were insufficient in any way. I am now happy to report that we are finally seeing some positive actions by the state police, and I would like to thank them for their assistance. Hopefully, we will have some good news in the future. If not, we will go to Plan B, and I will continue this search and to push this investigation till I know who this lady is. She certainly has family out there and very possibly children and grandchildren. In the meantime, I have received several additional pieces of information that I need to further explore in this state and others. I want to thank everyone who has contacted me over the past few years and recently to provide information on this case. And if you have any information, no matter how insignificant you may think it is, please messenger me on Facebook or contact the state police or contact Prosecuting Attorney Hott's office directly at 304-455-8222. And I want to especially thank Wetzel County Prosecuting Attorney Timothy Hott. What a great guy. Being a prosecuting attorney is pretty much a thankless job. You are taking verbal shots from people every single day. It takes grit, professionalism, and sacrifice to hold that office. And Tim's efforts for shining a light on this case are greatly appreciated. And I am sure he would enjoy hearing from all of you too, to hear your thanks in regard to his efforts on this case. Public support is always very important to law enforcement, and the prosecuting attorney is the chief law enforcement officer in any county in West Virginia. We will find out who this lady is. It may take us some time, but we will find out who this lady is and hopefully what happened to her. Judy, her family, and her children deserve closure. So thank you for watching, and until next time, this is Dr. Norman Wood signing off. God bless you. God bless Judy and her family. God bless West Virginia, and God bless America.